Picture this. It's a normal night in late November 2022. Nothing special. Most of the world is thinking about the holidays, the weather, dinner. And in a quiet corner of the internet, a company flips a switch on a little website with a plain white box and a blinking cursor. That's it. No fireworks, no giant launch event, just a text box that says basically, ask me anything. They almost didn't even release it. Some of the people who built it thought it wasn't ready. They figured maybe a few thousand curious nerds would poke at it over the weekend. And then something happened that nobody, not even the people who made it, saw coming. Because within 5 days, 1 million people had signed up. Within 2 months, it hit 100 million users. And that, right there, was the fastest any product in human history had ever reached that many people. Faster than the phone. Faster than the internet itself. This is the story of how the AI explosion actually began, and here's the thing. It didn't start in a lab full of robots. It started with you typing a sentence. So let's rewind to that box. The thing was called chatgpt, and when you first typed into it, the experience was genuinely a little unsettling. You'd ask it a question, any question, and instead of giving you a list of blue links like a search engine, it just talked back in full sentences like a person. You could ask it to explain quantum physics like you're 5 years old and it would. You could say, write me a poem about my cat who hates Mondays. And 3 seconds later, there's a poem. A real one. That rhymes. You'd sit there going, wait, how did it do that? And here's where it gets weird. Nobody explicitly taught it to do any of that. This wasn't a machine where an engineer sat down and typed in, if someone asks for a poem, here's how to write one. No. What they did was feed it a staggering amount of text, a huge chunk of the entire internet, books, articles, conversations. And they trained it to do one deceptively simple thing. Predict the next word. That's it. Over and over, billions of times, just guessing what word comes next in a sentence. And somewhere in that process, by doing that one tiny task at an insane scale, the thing started to seem like it could reason, like it understood. Scientists have a name for this. They call them emergent abilities, skills that just appear out of nowhere once the system gets big enough. Even the researchers building these things admit they don't fully understand why it works as well as it does. Let that sink in for a second. We built something, and we're not entirely sure how it does what it does. Now, let me tell you what this actually meant for regular people. Because this is the part that changed everything. Suddenly, you didn't need to be a programmer to command a computer. You just needed to be able to type what you wanted in plain English. Think about that. For 70 years, computers only did exactly what you told them in exactly their language. Code, commands, precise syntax, one wrong comma, and the whole thing breaks. And then overnight, the interface became conversation, the most human thing there is. So what did people start doing with it? Everything. A student stuck on an essay at 2 a.m. suddenly had a tutor that never sleeps. A small business owner who couldn't afford a copywriter could now draft 100 product descriptions in an afternoon. People who spoke English as a second language could write flawless emails and finally sound as smart on paper as they were in their heads. Programmers started using it to write code faster, sometimes twice as fast. And there's real research on this. In 2023, two MIT researchers, Shaq Noy and Whitney Zhang, ran a study on office workers using ChatGPT for writing tasks. The people using AI finished their work about 40% faster, and the quality actually went up 40%. Imagine every white-collar worker on Earth suddenly getting a productivity boost like that at the same time. And it wasn't just writing. This thing passed exams that take humans years to prepare for. It scored high enough to pass the U.S. medical licensing exam. It passed the bar exam, the test lawyers take, and not just barely, it scored in the top 10%. A machine that had never gone to law school, never sat in a classroom, outperforming most humans who spent a fortune and years of their lives. You start to see why people freaked out. Okay, but here's the part where the story turns, because it's not all magic and poems. As this thing spread to 100 million people, then 200 million, the world started splitting into two reactions. Half of people were amazed, the other half were terrified. And some of the most terrified people were the ones who built AI in the first place. Let me tell you about a man named Geoffrey Hinton. Now, this guy isn't some random critic. Hinton is often called the godfather of AI. He spent his entire life, decades, building the very foundations that made ChatGPT possible. He won the highest award in computing for it, and in 2023, at 75 years old, he quit his job at Google. Why? So he could speak freely about how scared he'd become of his own creation. He said, out loud, that he now worried these systems could one day become smarter than us, and that he wasn't sure we'd be able to control what happens next. When the person who helped invent the thing steps back and says, wait, maybe we should slow down, you pay attention. So what's the actual danger everyone's arguing about? A few things. First, jobs. If a machine can write, code, summarize, translate, and analyze faster than a person, what happens to all the people who did those things for a living? Nobody knows yet. Some economists think it'll create new jobs, the way every technology has before. Others aren't so sure this time. There's a Wharton professor named Ethan Mollick who studies exactly this, and he describes it in a way I love. He says AI won't replace you, but a person using AI probably will. In other words, the skill that suddenly matters isn't doing the task anymore. It's knowing how to direct the machine that does it. Second, there's the problem of truth. Because here's an uncomfortable fact about these AI systems. They sometimes just make things up, confidently. They'll invent a fake study, a fake quote, a fake court case, and present it to you with total certainty. Researchers call this hallucination, which is a very polite word for the AI is lying to your face without knowing it's lying. And when 100 million people are asking a machine questions and taking its word for it, that becomes a real problem. Suddenly, you can't fully trust the confident voice on the other end of the box, and it gets deeper. Because these same tools can now generate fake images, fake voices, fake videos of real people saying things they never said. The line between real and fake, the thing our whole society kind of quietly depends on, it started to blur, too. And then the race began. Once the world saw what ChatGPT did, every major tech giant on the planet panicked and threw everything they had into AI. Within months, there were competitors everywhere. New models, smarter versions, AI built into your phone, your search engine, your email, your documents. The tools got better at a speed that's honestly hard to process. The version that stunned the world in 2022 looks almost quaint compared to what came just a year or two later. Models that can see images, hear your voice, talk back to you out loud, and reason through complicated problems step by step. What took a research team years now updates every few months. We are living inside one of the fastest technological shifts that has ever happened, and most of us are just going about our day, using it to write emails. So let's step back and ask the real question. Did the world actually change? Or was this just hype? And honestly, the answer is both, and it's still being decided right now by us. Because the printing press took decades to reshape society, electricity took generations, and this thing landed in the hands of 100 million people in 60 days. We've never had to absorb a technology this powerful, this fast, all at once. Whole industries are rethinking how they work. Schools are rewriting what it even means to cheat or to learn. Doctors are using AI to catch diseases earlier. Scientists are using it to design new medicines and predict the shapes of proteins, solving puzzles that stumped humanity for 50 years. And at the very same time, we're wrestling with fakes, with job fears, with a machine that sounds certain even when it's wrong. It's the best of us and the scariest of us, all downloaded at the same moment. And here's the strangest part, the thing I keep coming back to. Remember how it started? Not with an army of robots, not with some evil supercomputer waking up. It started with a plain white box, a blinking cursor, and an invitation to just type a sentence. The most world-shaking technology of our lifetime didn't arrive with a bang. It arrived quietly, politely, asking how it could help. And you, an ordinary person, sitting at home typing, "Explain this to me," you were the one who pressed go. Millions of you, all at once, turned a quiet little experiment into the fastest revolution in history. That's the part nobody predicted. The AI explosion didn't begin in a lab. It began the moment regular people realized they could just ask. So the next time you open one of these things and type a lazy little question into that box, remember, you're not just using a tool. You're one of the hundreds of millions of hands that lit the fuse. And where it goes from here, that story isn't finished. It's being written right now, one typed sentence at a time, and honestly, you're holding one of the pens. Anyway, that's the story of how it all began. I'm Chio, and I'll see you in the next one.